Well. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Peggy's Recovery Corner. We are back again on a Friday, which usually we don't broadcast on Fridays, but I've decided that in the month of October, I'm going to probably be bringing guests on 3 times a week. This is a recovery podcast. We are specific to many, well, not specific to one type of recovery, but many different types of recovery. We talk about everything recovery or lack thereof, depending on the individual or who they are, or what they think, or what they are knowledgeable about. And we love to hear people's stories. And today, my special guest is Chris West. Actually, I'm in Palm Springs right now, so I'm not in my humble abode, but I just decided that, I got to make this happen. So I love Chris. Chris is a good friend of mine. And we are growing our friendship more and more as we go along.
Sure.
Welcome to the corner, Chris.
Thank you very much, Pez. Grateful to be here. Thank you.
Grateful to have you. So, Chris, usually, what we do is we delve into your past. We go and talk about where you were born, where you were raised. We get into the usage or the drinking, whatever that may look like, and then after that, we go into the recovery portion of your life. So, where are you from, Chris? Where were you born?
I've always been in Southern California, born in Southern California, but I was born in Compton, California, 1963. Had two parents, one of each, and moved to Orange County, 1970. Went to school here and a variety of stuff like that, and then moved back to LA, 1980s to go to school, trade school, learn a trade, and begin my journey into drugs and alcohol. We'll get into that. And
then you're 58 years old right now, and you said you said you were born in Compton, California.
Compton, California, 1963.
How old were you when you left Compton and went to Orange County?
Pretty young, 7, 8, 9 years old. Yeah.
So question for you real quick. I'm very curious because I've been to Compton. I go to Compton quite often. When you were in Compton, California at the time, were you one of the only white people there, or was there a diverse group of nationalities and
that's a
races?
Good question. We were very isolated. We lived on a street with two houses. The houses next to me, I believe they were Hispanic. So I literally didn't know any of our other neighbors, maybe the backstore neighbors. We went to a parochial school, St. Paul's. I think it was a mix, probably mostly white kids. I think the area was becoming predominantly black, or was already predominantly black. I'm not really sure. But I do recall the riots in '69 or something like that, being very traumatic. Or I'm a kid, I'm just doing whatever. But yeah, so
the Watts riots, right? You're talking about those?
Riots. Yes, correct. So that's when we moved out to Orange County.
Okay, and then y'all moved to Orange County. Where'd you move?
Midway City. Midway City. It's right in between Huntington Beach and Westminster and so on. And when we moved here, it was 71. So a lot of things were new then. A lot of open fields, no traffic, one area code. Right. I remember going to Mile Square Park, a little 9-year-old, whatever, being very disappointed because the trees were too small to climb.
So Orange County was just growing at the time.
Yes.
There was a lot of agriculture. There was a lot of oranges because that's why they named it Orange County. Yeah. A lot of farmland, right? So, okay. 71, you moved to, it was about 71 you said you moved to Orange County?
Yeah, about 71. Moved to Midway City, Orange County.
In 71, Pej was born.
There we go.
Okay. So then y'all lived in Orange County for how long?
Ever since.
Because you said you had moved back to LA.
I did right after high school, junior college. I moved back to LA to go to trade school.
Trade school. And what kind of trade school was it?
It was LA Trade Tech, and I've been going to a prior variety of schools up to that point. But air conditioning, refrigeration, a type of trade, electrical and stuff like that. I've been doing that in the summers. I was just talking to a teacher friend of mine. What kept me out of trouble in high school was my dad engaging me in stuff. First it was boxing and stuff, but then it really got into a trade. And it was the only place I could be outside of the household where people would say, good job. Oh, here's how you do it. Oh, you made a mistake? Oh, no problem. Here's how you do it. Because otherwise my father, very loving, very caring, but he was a yeller, and he was just like, okay, as soon as I did something good, okay, let's move on.
Did you have any siblings?
I did. One sister, 2 years older.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 years older. She's always been the rescuer, and she's always
Right.
been the tattletale as growing up. And she was very clever at manipulating or telling people what they wanted to hear. I didn't learn how to do that, at least with my parents. So,
And okay, so at what age were you experimenting with drugs or alcohol?
I dabbled in the teens. And when I say dabbled, I might have, not much. First sip of beer, I didn't like it. First, that's age 13. My mother was an alcoholic. First sip of beer, I got it. No one's home. It's filled. And I'm like, oh, this is terrible. First drunk was age 16. And it was probably just 4 beers. I didn't like it. I got sick. I tried to kick a stop sign, so I didn't repeat it.
Would you say when you were younger though, were you a rebel? Were you studious? Were you academic? Did you get into trouble?
I was introvert, shy, alone, broken. Always not fitting in, not being good enough. Whatever I could perform or get done, that was my value. Whatever I could get from someone's approval, that was my value. Didn't get in a lot of trouble.
You said your dad was a yeller. Was he just a yeller, or was there any violence in the house? I mean, sometimes verbal violence is just as bad.
Right. There was conflict between my parents, so that was
between
upsetting.
the two of them.
No real violence. Yeah, no. I mean, physical violence. I mean, I got spankings and stuff like that, and I had them coming. I totally earned them, and it helped change my pathway. But again, a yeller. Yeah.
And then when you were obviously you said you didn't like beer the first time you tried it, but what happened that you? Like, how old were you when you started to really actually get into using, and what were you using?
Mid-20s.
So kind of a late bloomer.
And I'll back up to age 19. I tried cocaine for the first time. I was going to junior college, Cyprus, air conditioned refrigeration. We're doing these illustrated drawings. I stayed up all night, illustrated drawing, copying from a book. And I'm like, my God, how did I stay up all night? This is freaking fantastic, except I feel terrible. But then I went to school, turned in my work, and the teacher said, this is the work I want. This is the detail I want. So I thought, wow.
So you because you did this cocaine, like you're like the movie Limitless, like you were just like, boom, like I could like bust out all like exactly the content that's needed. Now, I have a question for you. You said you were how old when you did that?
19.
And how did you obtain the cocaine?
Well, I haven't thought about that for a while. It's probably at my neighbor's house where they'd be having parties there fairly regular, and party is just 4 people. And I think must have been the cocaine there. Yeah, I got it from that guy's house.
And this was in Midway City?
Midway City, yeah.
Midway City. So kind of like in the neighborhood, people.
In the neighborhood, yeah. And it's interesting. I don't remember the specific person. I just remember what I did afterwards. For whatever reason, I had the wherewithal to look at it and go, oh my God, this stuff's dangerous. I like it so much. The switch didn't get turned on, or maybe it did, but I didn't act on it. So I left it alone because I thought this illustrated drawing of my trade, this is cool, but the cocaine didn't do this. I did this, but the cocaine kept me up all night. So the switch didn't get turned on. I'm also a musician. Been playing music ever since I was a kid. So my first time I tried crystal meth, early 20s.
How did you catch wind of meth? Like, how did it come into your? And what back then it was crank, wasn't it?
Yeah. You're right. The good stuff was crystal, but there was crank. You're absolutely right. It's pasty. They had crystal back then too. Whatever you called it, the speed.
The speed. And how did you obtain it?
Yeah, I didn't obtain it. Someone else. I gave it to me. We're in a garage. We're playing music. Drinking, not my thing, but everyone's drinking. Smoking pot, not my thing. Kind of puts me out in right field. But I'm still maladjusted. I'm sure, very socially inept. And but if I play music, I know I'm having done fun doing that. Anyway, first time we did crystal meth, whatever you want to call it, we played for like 2 or 3 days, and every song was a winner. It's like, wow, how can it be so good?
Sounded so good to all of you for sure.
Yeah, I
Now,
recorded it. I recorded
before
it. Yeah.
before you were going to do that crystal meth, were you scared? Was there any kind of fear? Like, was there an onset? Like, oh my God, what am I getting into? Or
No.
were you just a little rebel that was just like, I don't care, stick it up my nose? You snorted it, right?
Yeah, snorted it.
Yeah.
I was very curious. The guy was doing. Guy had been doing it all the time. You know, the little snorts,
Yeah.
and then I've been ignoring it. And that was asked, "Do you want to try some?" And I thought, okay. So I wasn't being a rebel. I was curious. But as
Just
I said,
curious.
we recorded it, and it was no recognizable that we were even playing the same song. So again, my mind thought, well, how wonderful is this stuff? But it's not real. But I thought it was real. Long story short, at that point, I was working for one of the public utility, integrating into life outside of the household, still afraid. Now, again, at work, hey, good job. Oh, here's a bonus, this and that. I discovered putting crystal meth into my coffee. I wasn't looking for the high, wasn't looking for the buzz. It was going to come. But anyway, I thought this was really very adult use, where I had to go to get it, and I wasn't real happy with that.
Right.
But so I'd start working really long hours at work.
Gotcha. And then what? It just became a way of life. You were doing crystal meth regularly.
I would do it 5 days a week. You know, to work long hours and maybe overtime. It's just like a really strong cup of coffee.
Like Monday through Friday to get shit
Monday
done.
through Friday, and we had back then. There's a lot of overtime at this public utility, and I just loved it. Again, I'm 19, 20 years old, and integrating away from this dysfunction, belonging somewhere, and I'd put in long hours.
So what about like you tell me that you would only do it 5 days a week? What about the weekends? Was that like your crash time? I mean,
only if I was working. Only if I was
you
working.
only use it when you were working, so you were somewhat. It seemed that you were managing. So what would you do on the weekends? Because if you're doing speed for 5 days in a week, there's got to be a crash period. I mean, there's got to be a time where you're just like, because you've been up for so long.
Yeah, no. I would still go to sleep.
You'd sleep every night you were doing meth?
Yeah, but it was a small amount in my coffee.
Oh, there's just that little amount. It was like limited. In a sense, you were kind of microdosing methamphetamines.
Microdosing, that's right. It's a term I've recently become familiar with. And again, I wasn't looking for the buzz. I was just looking for the good cup of coffee. Same thing I do now that I've gotten away from. We were talking about. I can get 5 shots of espresso, and I like the feeling, and I crash. I don't do that anymore. I don't need that.
So you didn't really see anything wrong with what you were doing. It was actually a tool for getting through the week and being highly productive.
Like really good coffee. Really good coffee.
Very well. Now, then what happened? What did you start? Like, how did life become? Did you experience any kind of depressive thoughts or depression when you were coming down? Perhaps. I mean, you got to come down. You were sleeping lately.
Yeah, good question. My life was already in a loneliness, already in a brokenness, and I don't know that depression was the right word, but that probably applies. But again, finding some new life and direction. And I used to hear the other people say, you know, when we were doing overtime, I'd always say, yes. They said, we realize you have a life outside of work. And I'm like, no, I don't. So at some point, I smoked crack for the first time. Again, at a musician's house. And it was the second hit that took me. That's when it escalated. Or there was something I was chasing. It wasn't just to keep me up. It was that rush. It was that high. It was actually a second hit of crack to where I'm like, I want more. This is a great feeling. And at some point I started smoking the meth too. Same thing. I was no longer using it to stay up. Not that I was using it to stay up, but I was no longer using it as just a stimulant to work. I was using it as a high to get the rush. And it wasn't every day at first. Then it turned into every day. Or it turned into 5 days a week. And I recall.
Do you remember how old you were during this time?
Mid-20s, late 20s.
So there wasn't a lot of people that were smoking crystal meth per se during that time. There was over a period. I mean, people could do it, like I did it back then. But
we're
talking about old school. This was like old school speed. This is the biker dope, that jet fuel shit, right? That if you were, it was usually being snorted or being people would intravenously shoot it too. But you say that you started to smoke it. What
Yeah.
Why the transition? Like why did you start smoking it? What were you smoking it out of? Off a tinfoil? Not a glass pipe, obviously.
Right. I guess my crack phase started before my smoking the meth phase.
Mm-hmm.
So the crack was through the shooter, uh, and so the crystal meth was a substitute for the crack when you couldn't get it. The crystal meth, in my view, because at some point I moved away from the crack, and the crystal meth, in my view, was responsible. What that was
Mm-hmm.
healthy use of a drug.
Right.
And in the late '90s, yeah, there's definitely crystal available. So I know about the paste and the biker dope and this and that, but in the mid '90s where I was at, L.A., MacArthur Park, other places not important, but there was crystal available where it was really crystal. Yeah, and so I was smoking it. So when I first realized there was a problem, we're the last to know, right? When we ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in the
How
late
was it?
90s. Yeah.
How was it the problem? What was the problem?
I recall being at work. The timeline's a little fuzzy. Must have been before '90s, late 2020s in my age. Anyway, the timeline is fuzzy, but I recall this experience. I'm working a night shift, and it's downtown LA, 5th and 8th and Flower. We're working for a high rise, and my whole job is just to keep the equipment running, shut it down, and it's a graveyard. I'm sorry, a swing shift. I'll get done at midnight. So I come into work like I normally do, and there's this guy across the street waving at me or waving at somebody. And I'm thinking, well, I haven't bought dope from him. He doesn't know me. I'm just going to ignore it. And then every time I got out to the front of the building on the roof, this guy's waving at me. I mean, he's turning and waving at me. Now it's starting to piss me off. I'm like, dang, I got to handle this. This guy shouldn't be doing that. So I waited 2 hours for most people to get home, and I get out to the front of my building. He's across the street waving at me. So I want to obey the law. I don't jaywalk. I go corner to corner, and I start walking up to him. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but he's got to stop doing what he's doing. And as soon as I get about 10 feet from him, there's no one waving at me. It's a mailbox. It's a mailbox. Now, at that point, I'd only been using 5 days a week. So I understand the crash and all that. So I'm sleep deprived. I'm not right, but I don't think that I'm not right. But how can I deny that? So at that point, I thought there's something very wrong with my thinking. So it didn't go to 82. Been to 4 treatment centers. We'll zoom up forward to 2005. It got worse from there. It was not only a daily thing, but an hourly thing. The terrible thing of staying awake and this and that. 2005, before my first treatment center, I'm on a ladder. It's 3:00 in the morning. It's slightly raining. I've got a flashlight taped to my head, an umbrella in the backside of my pants, and I'm painting my
tweaker
father's
shit.
house.
That's tweaker shit. That's tweaker shit right there. Yeah.
And to me, it was therapeutic. My father comes out to his house. He did not ask me to paint his house, by the way. And he just looks up and says, "What are you doing?" And I look down and go, "Nothing, nothing." "Do you know what time it is?" "I do not." 3:00. And I go, "Oh, that's great. I don't have to work till 5:30. Again, in my mind, if I see someone like that, I know, well, that's me. At some point, they're going to receive some miracle to get into some recovery, and something's going to change their life. But until they get to that point, there's no talking to them. So again, then at that day, that was my first. I showed up to work, and I was a guy that would say, "It's my responsibility to get to work. Once I get there, I'm their problem." Now at this point, I'm at a different location with a different boss. I used to have a lot more autonomy, and I could get away with a lot more stuff. I wasn't on the radar, so I became put on the radar long before that thing happened. But my boss just said, "Just sit, just relax. We don't want you going anywhere for a little while. Just relax here. You know what? Write down 3 things you'd like to get done in the next couple of days," or something like that. Now, again, my behavior had been a concern for a lot of people up to that point. It wasn't officially on the radar. And I wrote on the paper, "Please let me wake up without a day of remorse and regret." Terribly depressed. Oh my God. When I wasn't getting high and I was going home to get high, I'm just in tears. It's just how much my life sucks. So please let me have a day without remorse and regret. Please let me not wake up. Please let me start a drum circle. So I leave that there. And then she didn't read it right away. I call in sick the next day. I was detoxing, whatever you want to call it. To me, it was legitimately sick. They sent the fire department for a welfare check, and I'm actually not getting loaded, but I'm detoxing. You know, the delusion. I'm a responsible person. I'm actually sick, calling in sick. I hear my dad talking to some group of people out there. Anyway, long story short, it's the fire department. They want to talk to me. They want to check on my welfare, and I talked to them briefly. And yeah, I'm fine. And said, well, you need to come with us. And no, I don't need to come with you. I'm fine. Believe me, trust me. And they said, cool. You don't have to come with us, but the cops will come next, and you will have to go with them. And I go, oh shoot. Okay, I'll go with you.
It's real talk. Yeah.
And so they drew blood. Oh, that was my worst nightmare. Don't draw blood from me. You're violating my Fifth Amendment. All this stuff. You know, I'm a union guy, not a good citizen to the world. So the jig was up. I remember it was Verdugo Hills Hospital. They kept me 12 hours. Some observation. My sister came, took responsibility for me, kind of. And I remember coming into work the next day or something to see my boss and to see corporate security. And I'm like, am I in trouble? My boss was a wonderful woman, but she learned how not to be codependent, enabling. Said, no, you're not in trouble, but we need to talk to you. And corporate security, their number one concern, well, what is this drum circle? They were concerned it was some sort of explosives or something like that. And I'm just like, oh, it's drums. And then what about the other two things? They go, yeah, I don't like living in so many words. And I'm laughing about it now. At the time, there's nothing funny about it. Just the worst. First treatment center, and college hospital. Anyway, the first treatment center, 2005. So that whole journey from 2005 to 2010 took more convincing. So that tweaking with the flashlight and this and that, it got worse from there to where I remember picking up one time, y'all happy and excited. It's like it's the best thing in the world, and coming home and just spending 15 minutes sobbing, so alone, so broken. And how has my life come to this?
I relate.
Yeah. How's my life come?
I want to ask you this, and I want to get into what you were just talking about. That's very important, that part.
Yeah.
Were you mostly a stimulant guy, or like throughout your life, did you smoke weed? Did you you said you didn't like alcohol in the beginning, but along your journey, because you told me that you tried cocaine when you were 19, and then it sounds more like you got into a lot of tweaking and methamphetamines and things like that. But throughout all of this, was there ever like marijuana usage or alcohol? Was that ever in the mix?
Yeah, but to not any great degree. It was never something that I thought, well, this is cool. Now I like the buzz from marijuana. I like the buzz. But some of the newer stuff they had, it was beyond buzz. It just put me in right field, which for my perception wasn't something I liked. Although the speed make you crazy. Same thing with the alcohol. I like the buzz. I don't like the drunk. So yeah, I've never really experimented. Now I did have Seroquel given to me at some point from a doctor because I didn't tell him about the meth problem. I was having trouble sleeping. So I enjoyed the Seroquel. The Seroquel was able to put me to sleep.
Even when you were tweaking and all that.
Say again?
Even when you were tweaking.
No, this was kind of in between.
In between. Now, were you ever shooting meth, or was it just smoking?
No. Okay. Never
shot. And then
it.
you got sober in 2010, correct?
Yeah. The lasting sobriety is 2010.
Let me, if maybe I didn't hear it, but did your transition with speed change? Because I know that we're old school. Like what we used to use started to change. There became I remember it was like crank or crystal meth, which was the cleaner version of it. It seemed.
Yeah.
The transition into glass and then ice, and ice was the most highest potent form. It was actually harder to find in California. It was more of a drug that was being transported out to Hawaii, and I have a lot of personal experience with that. But I know that ice was like 1,000 times as strong as glass, and glass was more of a smokable thing. People didn't really. I mean, there were some people that snorted it or shot it, definitely, but it became. They would clean it with acetone and be able. You could smoke it, and it would give you a high, and over a period of time, you could sleep on it and things. Were you doing glass?
No, I was doing glass. Never got to the ice, but yeah, I was definitely doing glass.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you got to that point of, it seemed like the point of no return, where you were highly emotional about all that, was this in College Hospital? Was this in your own personal space? Where was this?
This was in my own personal space.
Okay.
Long before anyone else was asking me to change my behavior.
And you
My
were
dad.
just you were feeling a lot of emotions because you just felt like shit from what you'd done to your life, because you said, how has it come to this, right?
Yes, right.
So this was like a realization that you had within yourself. It's like you knew better, but you're so caught up that you just hate your life and you hate yourself. Is
Right.
that what happened?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, a question for you, if you don't mind me asking. I don't
Please.
know. I should
Open
have asked
book.
you if you're an open book. Um, do you have any traumas or anything that you think you were using overall throughout your life?
Not really, but a trauma is a relative term. But no, I've been a pretty happy childhood. My dad was a yeller. I didn't feel socially adapted. My parents got a divorce and they got argued. They argued. And I remember my father sitting me down, which he never did, took me to an arcade, which he never did, and told me, we're getting a divorce. It's not your fault. It has nothing to do with you. I love you. I think I've heard him say that 3 times in my life. I'm really grateful that he has. But I didn't believe him. It had to be my fault. So that was the bit of the trauma. I just didn't grasp
That's
that.
traumatic to some people. I couldn't stand. I didn't want my parents to get divorced.
Yeah.
So I just didn't. There was a lot of dysfunction within the household, but I didn't want to be the child of divorced parents. And it happened when I was actually 17, almost 18 years old. So I wasn't much of a child anymore. But regardless of the fact, I didn't want. I'd seen all my friends in school that were children of divorced parents or only
Yeah.
lived with one parent. And I always wondered, like, how would that be if I came home and dad wasn't there and mom wasn't there? Like, I need guidance from both the mother and the father. At least that's what I thought. And so when they split up, that really, really fucked with me. So, okay. So we'll move on now. So,
well, I got a quick little thing on that one. So at that
sure.
point, I didn't like it. I was unhappy. I didn't know how to communicate with people on, hey, I'm unhappy with this. This sucks. My desperate attempt to communicate was to be quiet. And I hoped someone would ask. And somehow that transformed into, I'm just quiet. I don't know why. So, but go ahead.
So so you became an introvert by choice because you just didn't want
Yeah,
to.
I forgot even why I was mad at the world, and then why
Okay.
they didn't come talk to me. And I'm going to be quiet and have
So
no
there's
emotion.
okay. So
Yeah.
but deep down inside, there was probably anger boiling within.
Yeah. Without knowing it, I felt hurt,
Okay. And that's
abandoned.
probably like one of the reasons that through the abandonment issues and all of that stuff, where it became an excuse to use and just numb out in excess, right?
Yes, an underlining cause, unresolved issue, never faced, never
Unresolved.
dealt with. Yeah.
So, Chris, so you say you went to treatment. Like, a lot of people think when they hear treatment, it's like bougie center where they have acupuncture and all kinds of amenities and things like that for people. So you said College Hospital. College Hospital is not. It's a hospital. It is treatment. They do provide treatment. There are
Yeah.
groups. Was there individual therapy?
This was outpatient, 2005, whenever it was. And they only spent a couple hours each week on drugs. They would sit us all down. I'm like going, oh. So they didn't really deal with the drug or an alcohol issue because I wouldn't really deal with it.
When you say 4 treatment centers, how long were your treatment stays and why weren't you staying sober?
Yeah. Well, on the very first treatment center, one of my prayers was, God, please let me wake up with remorse and regret.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up with the obsession to use. It was in LA, but I moved to Orange County with my sister. Now I'm going to outpatient College Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up, believe me, up to that point, I got to use every day. It's out of control every day. Not even out of control. I just love it. Well, I don't love it anymore. But anyway, I woke up.
You loved it. You loved it at the time.
Yeah, it had me. It was my master. It was
my master. Mm-hmm,
so that first day I woke up at my sister's, gonna go to a college house. The remorse and regret had been removed. The desire to get loaded had been removed, waiting to be reignited. And so for a while there, I didn't know anyone in Orange County that had drugs, except maybe one person. So I got away from that, went to that treatment center. They're dealing with a lot of interesting people. schizoaffective, bipolar, a whole variety of personality disorders.
Very, very many different types.
Yeah. So I ingratiated that. Once I graduated, whatever that is, I remember talking to the doctor too, going, when do we know we're good? When people rock out? And he was pretty honest. He says, well, there's limitations of what insurance covers or does not cover. When we feel you've reached a better state of whatever, you're good, or But they encouraged me to get involved in support groups.
Okay.
That was my first solo attempt to a support group, 12-step group. It was called Comfort Zone. It was a dual diagnosis, depression and alcohol and drugs, I think. Anyway, I wouldn't cop into the alcohol and drugs yet. It was pretty obvious. But
were you dual diagnosis? Like, were you diagnosed with mental health?
I was misdiagnosed because I didn't tell them about the crystal meth. So but I did come clean with that. And so I've never been diagnosed with bipolar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I remember going to that 12-step meeting. I circled the building 5 times. I didn't want to go in there. I felt so uncomfortable and everything. And then when I finally got in, it was all in my mind, So
it's interesting because I was a major tweaker myself. I had a love-hate relationship with crystal meth and with ice and glass and all of it for a long time. It's interesting how we hide behind the secret. There's an elephant in the room. There's definitely something wrong. It's our addiction. And if they were to have diagnosed me during that time, because of all the ups and downs and many different episodes that were created through me and my usage of crystal meth, they would have said I was depressive disorder. They would have said anxiety ridden. They would have said bipolar disorder because, I was like, crystal meth puts you on edge. You stay up for hours and hours and days on end, and you have this criminal mind, or you have you become demonic. You become demonic. The fucking devil takes over your soul, and that's just how it felt for me. Like I looked into like some of my so-called friends' eyes, and people that I grew up with that I really loved, like that we had all gotten into this, like the depths of like straight meth addiction, and I would look in their eyes and almost see like the demons within them had overtaken them, and they were just whole different people. So I myself was never diagnosed either when I first got sober. However, I do remember and still see to this day, here's what's happening more and more. I remember people I was using meth with that would go into full-blown psychosis. And that's from, I think everybody's chemical, like the structure of our chemical makeup within ourselves can vary. Some, like I was doing the same amount of drugs as these guys, and they've got stethoscope. One of them's got a stethoscope, and he's listening to the walls, saying that he hears the voices, and asked me to listen to. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, give it to me. I put it on. I'm like, I don't hear shit. He's like, they're talking about you right now. I'm like, I thought you needed a stethoscope to listen to him. He's like,
that's wonderful.
Well, actually, I have superhuman hearing, and I don't need to stethoscope, but it intensifies it. And they're talking about you right now. I'm like, really? What are they saying? Like that, So
were you buying into it, or did you know it was a little crazy?
I actually, you know what? I told them, one of them, I told them, listen, this is insane. Like, why would people be in your wallets? What, are we that important? Like, you have to like use common sense. That we're not that important. The FBI and the CIA. Are we committing federal crimes for them to want to bug the car and bug the ceiling and put the camera in the corner?
It's logical.
It's not true. Like, so I think that I still carried a lot of logic during the time of using.
Yeah.
But if I'd have stayed up long enough, Chris, there was times when I'd stay up for days and days where I started thinking, I just saw that helicopter go overboard like 5 different times. It keeps circling. Are they after me? And sure, down the line, when I did get raided by the methamphetamine task force, I remember just looking at them thinking, well, I never, I guess I've been waiting for this day. Here we are. So, your 4th treatment stay is the time that you got sober and stayed sober completely?
Yes.
Okay. And was it College Hospital all 4 times, or were you going to other treatment centers?
Other treatment centers. I finally ended up at Cornerstone. Was College Hospital the first one, Twin Town twice. And the Cornerstone was the 24/7. We're going to keep you.
Cornerstone is in Tustin, California, in Orange County.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long did you stay there for?
93 days.
And during your 93 days, what happened? Was there kind of some kind of revelation? Like what happened that did you stay sober, like completely sober when you came out of it, right?
Yes.
Did a panel come in? What was it that made Chris West actually decide this is it?
Several things happened, and probably three major ones. The first one was in detox. There was this realization that this is as good as my life is going to get. This is the best it's going to get. And in fact, it's going to get worse from now because I won't have insurance and I can only pray to get back to where I'm at. Detoxing out of garage as a newcomer. So I thought.
You were 47 years old at the time?
Yeah, about 47. And I'm thinking, I'm powerless. What's going to happen here? Then I got this message or knowledge or communication from a higher power, God. I just call it God. And it was kind of not auditory, but it was like, I've been asking you to do something for a long time. If you don't want to do it, I'm going to get someone else. I'm like, and I'll be talking.
God saying this to you? Or you're saying this
I felt it was God communicating to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did this message come about? Were you on your knees in prayer? Were you sitting at a dinner table? Did you hear it like when you were outdoors and like a breeze in the wind? When did this?
I was sitting in a room in a garage. The meeting was about to start. Might have been a panel. I don't recall, but I remember sitting there and I asked the question internally, going, "What is it you want me to do?" Right. And the source, the power, whatever you want to call it, said, "I want you to start caring about someone else other than yourself. Go pray for that person." There was someone over there, and I go, "Can I do it from here?" You know, and then I went to that person and asked for permission to pray. I still know this person; she's sober in San Francisco, and that prayer was as much for her as it was for me. That God's not forgotten you, that He understands that you're hurt, that you're scared, and that you're not alone. There is a reason for this, and we're going to get through it, and you're going to help the next person. I get excited about talking about it now. So that with two more experiences.
This is a very powerful experience. So sometimes we hear messages through other people. We hear God's message through other people, but you're straight up having a conversation with God. Why did you trust it, Chris? Why did you trust whatever that thing that? Did you think you were insane, or did you like believe that something's looking out for your best interest?
I'd always believed in that power. I just didn't have a relationship with Him. I wanted Him to bring me home because I'm done with this life. I didn't doubt it. I trusted it, and just to care about the next person. And then next, there was a person involved with this moment of clarity, this spiritual experience. Number two, I'm in a meeting, visiting speakers meeting, AA meeting. I'm still smoking and joking. I don't got a problem, but something's changing, and we're making noise in the back room. Speaker meeting. I've made amends to this speaker meeting recently, a couple of years ago, and they said we weren't even there when that happened. Anyway, this old timer comes up. All the guys I'm joking with, they left. They're out there smoking, laughing at me, and I'm caught. This old timer said, and I'll just tell you exactly what he said. If you don't want to take this serious, he points to the front where people are talking, sharing the hope, sharing something that's going to save my life. And he points out to my friend and says, "Go out there and fucking die." I can't tell someone that, but I needed to hear that. And it wasn't that he was kicking me out of AA. He was telling me I had some choices. And I knew nothing about what was going on up there. So the next day, next week, whatever, I sat up front, and here comes the same old timer. And he's going to read chapter 5. He's got a lamp, and I'm pretty sure he's got 30 days sobriety. He really needs this program. And he recites chapter 5. And it's not that he had it memorized that was the deal here. It's that those words were talking to me and to God. Me, God, those words. And to this day, when I hear someone read the steps or the traditions, I'm listening to them intently. But anyway, at this moment, they were just like, it's all here. It's all here in these words and more. It's just up between you. Rarely have we seen a person fail and all those things. And all the new readings, if I listen to it, it's me and God. And then finally, the third realization, my first time in a 12-step meeting where I heard my story, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. Just a 3-minute share. and he explained what it was like first time to smoke crack. That was exactly me. What would happen? We'd get these opportunities, the 3 treatment centers, to get help. People going, we'll help you if you want help. You don't want help, we can't help you. And then finally, the fourth part, what it's like now. And he talked about his life being rich. And I'm in my first 30 days of sobriety, and his life being rich and full because he has a sponsor and works his steps. So at that meeting, I asked a man to be my sponsor, someone I saw 5 years earlier, because I was supposed to go to meetings for work. He'd give me his card. Like, I'm not calling you. Life is good. I don't need that. This same man there, I asked him to be my sponsor, and he was my Eskimo for my first 2 years of sobriety. So those things got me on a course.
Did you mention when you were talking before in your using times, were you doing crack too? Because I know that you're a member of and crack life is a whole different type of life. I mean, there's a big difference between meth use and crack use.
Yes, there is. And the crack was a shorter high. It was more desperate. It consumed my more time. So again, I thought it was being responsible and like switching from Coke to diet, to green tea. And so the crystal meth, I recall even smoking crystal meth the first couple of times the wrong way. I was smoking it in a shooter. It was like my reserves when my crack ran out. The crystal meth was easier to get and it lasted longer. And it seemed like I was in more control. All an illusion. If I hold on to any sobering fact, anything I was getting from drugs and alcohol, counterfeit. What we're doing right now, this is real. This is me. This is you. This is real. I love this. I don't need a pill or a hit to do this, to enjoy this.
Awesome. So Chris, this is where this gets special for me in this podcast, and I want to tell you why.
Please.
You basically you told my story today. You fucking told my story today. There's times when people that come into recovery, they can sit in rooms for countless meetings and hear so many people share in so many different ways, and they might get little bits and pieces of things. Okay, I might relate to that. Although, you know what, that sounds kind of familiar. I don't have nothing to do with that guy. Oh, I didn't drink like that, or I wasn't an alcoholic, or I wasn't a drug addict, or I was just an alcoholic. So many differences rather than the similarities. But today, the way that you talked about somebody who seemed like they said some stuff that captured your heart, and then you were brought into the path of real recovery. And that, when I say real recovery, I mean the type of recovery I subscribe to. And I know you, and I know that the circles that we run in and the type of recovery that we have, pretty much, it's part of our life. Like it's our everything. It's what we do. We come from the same cloth. Like we truly see things the same way, and it's not because we use the same way. We may have used some of the same stuff, the same way, but it's where we came and what we did, and who demonstrated it for us what it was to be men and women of recovery, and then us actually following suit and doing that. So this is of great importance. So Chris, what I enjoy about you is, how many years are you sober right now? 11?
11 years, a little over 11
years. Okay. What I see when I see you is you're a man of service. You step up. You take commitments. You provide a safe space. When people come into a room of recovery and they might be a newcomer, you make them feel welcome.
That's important to me.
Majorly important, because someone did it for you, and someone did it for me. And so it's not just about setting up the chairs or making the coffee. It's about leading a person towards a sponsor, perhaps towards pamphlets, towards a message of hope, a message of depth and weight, a message of recovery. That what you do is, when I grow up, I want to be like you. I'm not kidding you. I'm telling you, I see a man who's really embraced this way of life. And there's a lot of people that we see that come into recovery that their recovery remains on shaky ground. Some people will do the footwork in the very, very beginning and be driven and do it because they are being told this is what we do to stay sober. So over a period of time, like they do it, but they become like mechanical, like robots, and they just do it because they think it's what you have to do. What I feel might be the problem with that sometimes is the fact that you're doing this to please perhaps a sponsor or a spiritual advisor to try to look good for them, because who knows, you might have daddy issues, or you might have mommy issues, and so this is like a new authority in your life that you think is trying to tell you what to do. And if you don't live up to their expectations, again, you're not going to amount to anything. And they're, at least this is your perception.
Oh, yes.
You haven't yet given yourself to something greater than yourself. We still live in that third dimensional style of living, to where it's the worldly things that we think we have to obtain, and in order to satisfy others, we think that a level of success only comes from how many days we've been sober, or how many sponsees we have, and all that. But that's not what this is about. This is about giving of ourselves with no expectations. This is about complete surrender to something greater than ourselves, which I heard you say in a second. A lot of people get hung up on the God idea, or the God word, for that matter. Right? I don't want to call it God. I don't want to refer to it as a he. Me personally, I had a lot of daddy issues. So for a long time, I called God she. Like, for me, God was a she. But, call it Mother Nature, whatever. Like, straight. Yeah. But so the topic today is about service, and I truly, what I want to do is just hear from you for another 5 minutes about why service is such a big deal for you in the recovery space, and just in the world as a man of recovery.
Yeah. Good question. And I talk a lot with my close friends from 2010 that's restarted his date, and he wants to know, how do you get so juiced for this stuff? How are you so excited? And it's because of the people I've been around. It's my sponsor immediately was doing service, talking about it. And believe me, the first GSR report I heard, which is a general service rep for a 12-step group, I heard it and thought, someone needs to stop that person. That is not a good share. What the service has enabled me to do, and my first service commitment was calling my sponsor daily. And that was a tough call in my head. What do I talk about? This and that. And every time I did it, I felt good. I did what I said I was going to do. First meeting commitment, coffee. Well, I don't want to make coffee. I drink coffee. I'll just bring a coffee. Right. Get there an hour early, stay a little half hour late. It ingratiated myself into the meeting. I felt a part of. I had a purpose. I had a reason. And from a coffee brewer to a trustee, we're hoping to get a connection from this person that's dying of this disease like I was, and get someone that's had a spiritual awakening that I'm having, and the two can meet, and their hearts can grow and a new life is born. I recall going through my character defects and stuff. It's all a secret, and writing it down. I'm afraid that I will die alone, unloved, unwanted, uncared for, not making any difference. This is my truth. This is who I am. I'm ashamed to admit it. It's like the color brown in my hair. It's just who I am. And my sponsor said, we're going to work on that. God's going to work on that. It's not an overnight thing. It's okay. I can laugh at that now. And I'm not saying that it's funny, but I know that it's a lie. So these lies we tell ourselves, when I can't look you in the face and I'm afraid to talk to you, I want to help that person find what we've had. And then the next person, so on. One of the bitchinest things is to be in a panel and see someone come to a meeting from that panel, or sponsor someone, and this and that. Service, I'm reminded I'm still a crackhead. I'm a newcomer that stuck around. And I've got a service resume. I won't bother listing that here, because I like to help and be of service. And what service has done for me is keeps me, especially when I keep changing committees and stuff like that, is ask for help. How do we do this? What am I supposed to do? What can we do? And the commitment, I rotated out going, oh, here's what they showed me. Here's my humble view of it. And I'm learning to allow each person to have their turn at bat. And believe me, early sobriety, I'm like, oh, no, you're holding it wrong. You got to step in, this and that. It's their turn at bat. It's their turn at bat. If they want to go down without swinging, that's up to them. But I had my turn, and people were very patient with me, and they showed me things. And I stepped up and did what I was supposed to. So a thing I like to say is that the same enthusiasm I used to get from a hit of crack, like service is a hit of crack. And I was telling that to Pat O one time. We were doing posters. God, this stuff's great, you guys. Usually we just do it with 2 people. There's 15. This is like smoking crack. And Pat says, this is good, but it's not the same thing as crack. And he's absolutely right. because crack is artificial. It's not real. And I'm not going to be knocking at your door at 3 a.m. going, got some more posters. But what it is good is something I like doing, something that sparks it in me. The first hit of crack I took, oh, what's this about? Second hit of crack I took, oh my God. So I want to be excited about life and service and stuff like that. So that's why service is important to me. You keep asking for help. And you got to remind yourself that you're still a crackhead. I know one of the service commitments that I bowed out of, I was wanting just to get the position. And I'd gone through the resume, the process, and was finally at a certain level. I go, I just want it to so I can have it. That's not the reason you have it. I want the position to serve. And so every other position I have now, I want to serve. That will come later. But so I'm just another crackhead, staying sober, enjoying life. That's where service is. And my little pitch on service is the gateway to gratitude. It's a platform to growth and a passageway to freedom. I'm free today. So
absolutely awesome. I mean, this is amazing. What a privilege it was to have you on the show today. You're a good man. We've known each other for a few years. I've seen you at certain meetings, certain places where ex-cocaine users usually congregate. And I think we both have admired each other's recovery. So I just thought, like about a month and a half ago or something like that, when I was talking to you, come on the podcast. Let's have you on there, man.
Great opportunity. Great opportunity.
Well, to any and all who tuned on in, I hope that you enjoyed. And then this will be available on my YouTube channel. If you could support the YouTube channel, it's Pej, the drug interventionist. You can find me on there. All of our episodes of Pej's Recovery Corner on there, as well as many other videos that we've done, both my TikTok videos and other videos about raising awareness about drug addiction, alcoholism, mental health. And we look forward to seeing you all soon again. I'll be coming back with another guest probably next Tuesday. I'm going to take a break this weekend. But Chris, again, thank you for coming to the corner. I love you very much. And namaste. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you so much. I enjoy the corner. I'll be watching, listen to learn. Thank you, sir. God bless.
Awesome. You're the best. Bye.